The story of whether the Washington football team will maintain its name, the Redskins, continues. By the way, I think the answer to that question is yes, they will. There's no indication that they won't. But the pressure on the league and the team to change the name continues. The latest move now, a letter from 50 Democratic senators initiated by Maria Cantwell of Washington and the Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada to the NFL, indicating that the name should be changed. The despicable comments made by Mr. Sterling, referring to Clippers owner Don Sterling, have opened up a national conversation about race relations. We believe this conversation is an opportunity for the NFL to take action to remove the racial slur from the name of one of its marquee franchises, that being the Redskins. So what was interesting here is that no Republicans signed it. John McCain included didn't sign it. McCain in Arizona, a lot of Native Americans in Arizona, and he had indicated at various times that he doesn't want to weigh in so much on, but that if he were the owner, he'd probably change the name.
Yeah, that's probably a popular opinion, I would imagine. Yeah, and there were also 5 Democrats who didn't sign it. The ones you'd expect. Basically.
Right. Well, it's funny. Sort of the ones in tight re-election races, right? Mark Pryor. Right, he doesn't.
Have some balls, okay?
Right.
If you think you're going to lose your seat because you said they should change your name, just fucking do it.
By the way, that's exactly the kind of reason you'd lose your seat.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
And Joe Donnelly and Joe Manchin in Indiana and West Virginia, they're just but also fairly conservative Democrats. Joe Manchin, West Virginia, that's Washington Redskin territory.
Yeah.
As is Arkansas for a long time, like throughout the South. Yeah, until there was a team. Because the Falcons didn't have a national following, and until they put the Panthers in Carolina, the Redskins were the South's team, really, up until the point you got really to Georgia.
No Texas teams or anything like that?
No, the Texas is not the South. Texas is Texas.
Yes. Okay.
And then the other guys who didn't sign it, the Virginia Senators. Like they don't. Tim Kaine and Mark Warner. They're like, we don't want any part of this.
Yeah, I gotta go.
I got things happening there. You a letter. That's great. I'm losing you. I'm going into the tunnel. But the other 50 Democratic senators signed it, or the ones who caucus, at least with the Democrats, all signed it. Here's the NFL's response, and it comes from Brian McCarthy. He's a spokesman for the NFL. It begins that the NFL has long demonstrated a commitment to progressive leadership on issues of diversity and inclusion both on and off the field. The intent of the team's name has always been to present a strong, positive, and respectful image. The name is not used by the team or the NFL in any other context, though we respect those that view it differently.
And so, really fast, Brian McCarthy is saying exactly what it means and how it should be interpreted. Why didn't we list what tribe he represents on that graphic?
Right.
Oh, no. He's a white individual? Okay.
He might
That's
be
interesting.
He might be Irish. I don't know. So, like, again, put up the first part of that. Long demonstrated a commitment. The intent of the team's name has always been to present a strong, positive, and respectful image. That's that full quote. Like, dude, we know that part. Like, nobody thinks now that Dan Snyder wants to keep Dan Snyder, who is now, because Donald Sterling is on the cusp of being forced out, is now in sole possession of the biggest jackbag in sports. Like, he's owned it. He was in competition with Dan Snyder, with Don Sterling, and frankly, Sterling had him beat even before this. But I feel more passionately about the Washington football team than I do about the Clippers. But now you can't deny it. Donald Sterling is worse than Dan Snyder. But that's his competition. He's a loathsome, loathsome man. And like,
apparently Mark Cuban as well.
And Mark Cuban is a different.
He wants to be seen as being in competition.
Yeah, I know. He said what he said because he's a little dumb for a guy who's made that much money. He doesn't know. But like, it's not the same. They're not the same brand of douchebag at all. Sorry, jackbag. I'm trying to really get that word in.
Yeah.
So
you notice I reintroduced it earlier this week.
No, I didn't.
No,
good.
I said it to you to get you to start using it.
Oh, thanks. Jackbag. So now, here's a little stat for you. 300 tribes representing 2 million Native Americans have endorsed changing the name.
Yeah.
That's from The Hill. The team continues to trot out old polls that suggest, the polls are wrong because they were like 89% of Native Americans support the name. Fucking inconceivable, right? I mean, they can't even fake a poll correctly. Yeah. And also, it was asked in a way that, like, whatever, doesn't matter. We know now that the body of Native Americans would like the names changed, and it's pretty basic as to why they want it changed, because the dictionary definition. Do we have that? A dictionary definition.
Usually offensive.
Usually offensive American Indian.
Look, here's the thing. I mean, I understand we've had this argument multiple times. I think they should change the name. I get you can have sort of an argument over Braves or something like that, in the same way that you could have like Legionnaire, like it's a name for a fighting class of your culture. There's no argument about Redskins. We know what that means. You couldn't do black skins. You couldn't do yellow skins. Insert whatever color you want. It's offensive to most people.
Skin out. Yeah, let's
all together.
Keith Olbermann did a great segment on this last month, just as good as it can be done, and I'm stealing a little bit from him. But so, first of all, the owner of the team back when they came up with the name, George Preston Marshall, he was a bigot. The Redskins were the last team to sign a black player. He said things like, I'm paraphrasing now, I'll sign a black player out of my cold dead hands. It was essentially the same point. I'll sign a black guy when you pry that black guy from my cold dead hands. His bigotry is like Donald Sterling's bigotry, right? There's no ambiguity on it.
Yeah.
So that's the history of the team name. The Hail to the Redskins song had to have the words changed because they were like, "Hey, Jesus, for the love of God." Yeah. And then, so here's Dan Snyder's response. We gave you the NFL's response. Dan Snyder, in March, Snyder announced the creation of the Washington Redskins Original Americans Foundation. There has never been a more obvious attempt to buy people off than this. The creation of the Washington Redskins Original Americans Foundation, the result of a month-long research. Now look at that name, the Washington Redskins Original Americans Foundation. The Original Americans Foundation, which of course, in case you hadn't figured this out, its acronym would be OAF.
So I guess that is true.
Those are the, and none other than one of the strategists. First of all, there are 3 Republican strategists who've assisted Dan Snyder in this effort.
It's a good sign.
One of those Republican strategists is a Democrat, Lanny Davis, who's one of the easier guys to dislike in American public life. And this is the brain trust that came. Almost the worst thing that Bill Clinton did was employ Lanny Davis. Just to be fair, when my father ran for Congress in 1976 in the Democratic primary, 5-way primary, he lost to Lanny Davis.
Oh, okay.
Who then lost the fucking seat. But nobody likes Lanny Davis. There's no progressive in the world who likes Lanny Davis. And their big solution to solving Dan Snyder's problem was coming up with an organization called OAF.
Yeah. Well
done.
Look, I'm glad that the senators are doing something about this. It's not an area they normally get involved in, but as they say in the letter, which you should track down and read the entire thing, there is sort of a perception of an opening in the wake of what Sterling said, that maybe we can get some traction on these long-standing areas of bias and discrimination in professional sports. And I don't know that that's right, but it's worth a letter, I think.
Yeah, it's worth a letter, and it's worth doing. Look, the name at some point is going to have to change. Although, again, you could have an owner who lives to be 75, keeps the team until he's 85 years old, and just won't. He's a bad guy, Dan Snyder. He's a bad human being.
Well, look, here's what needs to happen. Whoever Daniel Snyder is sleeping with on the side needs to start carrying a pocket recorder around.
That's right.
Bringing some tapes forward.
Where's Dan Snyder's girlfriend when you need him?
Yeah.
When you need her.
Very half quick, Native American.
I would like this included in the clip off to remember this. Watch Keith Olbermann's, Google Keith Olbermann's very good Olbermann Show clip from last month on the team name and Snyder's efforts. It's full and complete, and it's great, and it's worth watching.
Yeah, by the way, I don't often watch, because I don't have any real reason to, I don't often watch his show, but I remember I watched that one, and I also caught basically the takedown of what was going on in Sochi when it was happening. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
kind of a dick, but he knows what he's doing.
Totally.
Yeah, we've had some issues with him, but no, he puts on a good show. I mean, he drew me in twice to sports news when I really don't give a shit.
Yeah, totally. He does a great job.